Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode here with the Aquarium Project. I really appreciate the support and I love you guys all so much. I hope you guys are enjoying your fish tanks because at the end of the day, that's why we're all here. But yeah, aside from that, I'm just going to jump into... Did my voice just break? That's awkward. I probably should delete this card and do it again, but I'm not going to. But we're going to jump on into today's main topic for today's episode, which I think is a quite important one. So let's go. So we're talking about these today. This is a plastic bag, fish bag. I got the brand new ones here. I got these ones that's reused from from a fish order that I ordered in. I reuse them wherever I can. So yeah, but what I'm going to be talking about is why they're stupid and why it's so dumb that I have to use them. So obviously, we need to get fish home somehow. If you come in and buy this Sunshine Banshee, how does it get from here to your house? Well, the traditional and the obvious answer is you put it in a plastic bag, and then that goes in your car, and you take it to your house, and then you put the bag in, and then it goes into the water. That should be pretty easy. But there is another way that is much better on the environment, much better for all the fishes that we actually love, and that is the bucket, particularly the bucket with a lid. So I'll show you what I'm talking about just here. So this is a bucket here, just a little 20 litre bucket, 5 gallon bucket I think it is. Pretty self-explanatory. With a lid, the lid will snap on and then keep it secure, but I won't do that now because I don't want to. But yeah, it's got this hole on top, but you don't need it. But you should bring a bucket with you every time you go to a fish store. And the reason is because when you buy a fish, you can get that fish put in a bucket instead of in a bag. And there's a few good things about that. Obviously, no one likes plastic. Plastic sucks. It's terrible for the environment. It's terrible for the waterways, which of course we all love. But yeah, it's terrible. The other thing as well, in terms of the actual fish, a bucket's obviously got all round sides, which is good. But it doesn't get jostled around. The fish doesn't get jostled around as much in a bucket as in a bag, because a bag is like a soft-sided thing, so it'll throw them around a lot more. And the bucket will kind of slosh them around, but it'll be a lot more easy on them. So you'll find the fish will travel a lot easier. So it's kind of a win-win situation. But having to use less bags would honestly be so much better for the hobby in general, for the environment. Like, just think of a thing. A bucket is good. And then the other thing as well is you can just use that bucket for your water changes in that as well. So you got to double up, like a double kind of usage thing. And I just really think that is so much better for the environment than, well, just not the environment, but just better in general than the plastic bag solution. The most common question I get kind of when I mention this type of thing is, oh, that's all well and good, but then how do I acclimate my fish to my tank when I get home? If it's in a bucket, I can't exactly float the bucket in my tank, so what do I do there? And this is a very good question, and I hope I'll be able to answer that for you. So the way I do it is kind of, there's two methods. The easiest method I'd say is just get a length of hose, like your gravel vac or whatever, and just siphon water out of the tank into the bucket with the fish in it. And so what's going to happen is as the new water goes into the bucket, what it's going to do is it's going to mix with the old water, and then it's going to kind of even out. So that's going to mean that the pH, the hardness, the nitrate, everything, it's going to match what's in the bucket to out of the bucket in the aquarium. And then when you put your fish from the bucket to the aquarium using a net, it's not going to have so much of a kind of shock going through, and it's going to acclimate a lot better. So it's not just a temperature thing. We're acclimating to all these other things. So if anything, your fish is going to be more acclimated to your tank than it would otherwise be if you were using your normal float, what do they call it? Plop and drop method of just letting the bag float, matching the temperature, and that's it. You're matching all the other parameters. So it works out being much more kind of long-term solution in getting the parameters right for the entire fish. Well, I don't know if that's really making sense, but you know, all of the parameters right for the fish so that it can have a much better chance of, once it's added, of just picking up taken off, and away we go, and being happy and healthy and having a much better chance in the aquarium. So yeah, I do really think the bucket thing is not as sort of popular as it should be. I remember one time when before I had the shop, when I was just like a normal hobbyist, just like you guys, I took a bucket to my local fish store and bought a fish. I don't 100% remember what fish it was, but I bought a fish and I didn't want to use plastic, so I asked them to put it in a bucket, and it was like this big thing. It was like, oh, like they looked at me like I had 3 heads, and they're like, oh, you want us to put the fish in the bucket? I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, but that's going to use so much water. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine, because then you can just do a water change, and it's better for the fish that I'm not buying in the same aquarium. And it was like just such a weird thing, but I think it needs to be something that's much more prevalent in the hobby, because like just think of all the good stuff that comes out of it, like we've already mentioned. And it just gives you so much of a better opportunity for having success with your fish. It allows the fish store to, you know, get some more water going through the tank, like without having to do a water change, like all of this stuff. It is just all round a much better solution. So what I also say to people is, in your car, if you're lucky enough to have a car, in your car, just keep a spare bucket in the boot. Like obviously dry it out, don't put a wet bucket in, that's not going to be a good idea, but dry out a bucket with a lid, keep it in the boot of your car, and then even if you're like just out and about doing something non-fish related, and you drive past somewhere and you're like, oh, there's a little fish shop in there, and then you go in and you're like, oh damn, I really want this fish, but I'm gonna have to use plastic. No, you don't. You can just run back out, grab a fish, throw it back in the bucket, and then away you go. And that's going to be a much more sort of, you're kind of being prepared. And like obviously if you don't need it, you don't need it, you're never going to think of it again. But it's good to have the option. And it's not like a bucket's expensive. Like normally you can just, like that bucket I just showed you before, I got for free. But you know, you can just get buckets for like really cheap little buckets. Befriend saltwater fish tank keepers, because they go through lots of lidded buckets for their reef salt. You can always find buckets for cheap or free all over the place. So it's basically just giving you guys a much better opportunity to be able to help the environment and help your fish. So yeah, I mean, I honestly, there's no such thing as a bad thing when it comes to buckets. I would really encourage you to bring a bucket in next time you come see me. You don't even necessarily have to buy a fish, but at least then you've got the option of a bucket if you do see something that you're like, I've got to have it. Because then obviously I can not have to put plastic bags out there, because I don't like being part of that, but I do understand like there's always a place for the bags, but if we can minimize that as much as possible, that's only going to be a good thing. So yeah, I hope that makes sense for you guys. But yeah, I mean, a bucket is so underrated. Like it's got so many usages in the hobby. You can even use it, like you can use a little bucket as a medicating tank, you know, short-term medicating tank. Helps with the water changes, clean out your filters, transport fish around the place. Like, I just love a bucket basically. So you should definitely have one, at least one, and you'll find a use for it, I'm sure. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. What do you? I'm interested to see what you guys think about the plastic bags, because like, I think it's Europe, like the European Union or something. Just you can't use bags at all anymore. Like, you know, you can't buy plastic bags for your groceries, but you can't get them for even fish, so you have to use a bucket. And I think that's the best way to do it. I have looked at trying to get some buckets made, so I can like sell them, like instead of having, you know, people take their fish away in a bag, they take it away in a bucket. But I haven't been able to make it cost effective yet. But I think that is where we're going. I don't think, you know, this plastic bag thing, single-use plastic bag thing is crazy. Of course you can reuse plastic bags, but not always. Like, they don't last as long, they get damaged much easier. So I think buckets is the way to go for sure in society. Well, not in society, but away from plastic bags is the way to go at least. So yeah, I hope you guys agree and can find a use for a bucket, because it is a very useful tool to have in the hobby. But yeah, aside from that, thank you guys all very much for watching. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. But other than that, I love you all very much, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!